Hi kids, I'm Bob the Tomato.
Or perhaps you know me better as a certain upper-class British asparagus.
Or maybe even as the world's most popular decorative gourd.
Or perhaps you just know me as the voice that says, and now it's time for Silly Songs with Larry, the part of the show where Larry comes out and sings a silly song. I'm very happy to be here. I wasn't sure I was going to make it. I turned 40 last summer. I don't know, have any of you turned 40? Yeah. It's a little rough. That appears to be the age where everything starts falling apart, as far as I can tell. So for the last month, I've had this weird head cold. And about 3 days ago, well, over the last couple of weeks, I noticed that my nose was getting really sore. I thought, well, you know, I've been blowing my nose a lot. That must be why it's getting sore. 3 days ago, I looked in the mirror and noticed that it was actually swelling up on one side and turning red. And I thought, okay, I'm talking to several thousand children's pastors in a couple of days, and I'm going to be in the middle of my talk, and my nose is going to explode and fall on the floor. And I'm pretty sure if your nose falls off in the middle of any talk, that's all people will remember, regardless of what else you've said. So I went to my doctor and said, there's something, I don't know, going on here, and I need to fix it quickly. And he looked around and said, okay, I think you need to go to a nose doctor. I thought, oh, they have those? I'm 40 now, I guess I need to know. So I went to the nose doctor, and he poked around a little and said, oh, yeah, folliculitis. And I thought, you just made that up. What's that? He said, no, you've had a cold for a long time, and the infection can actually go in through a hair follicle on the inside of your nose and start to build up in there. Good heavens. So he says, you know, we need to take care of that. So he put me in this special nose doctor chair and told me to lean my head way back and said, now this might be a little uncomfortable. And, you know, I think at medical school they teach understatement. So this might be a little uncomfortable. Ouch! That hurts! I've been to the dentist many, many times, and I'm very familiar with the dentist's world of little metal pokey and sucky things. I was not aware that there was a parallel world of nose doctors' little metal pokey and sucky things. Having visited that world, I do not wish to return, and I would advise you to avoid it if at all possible. Having said that, it cleared up very quickly, and I'm able to speak to you today without any fear that my nose will fall off and hit the floor. So, thank you. I am not a major celebrity. There are no paparazzi hiding in my bushes. I can generally go to the grocery store without being recognized. The average American, if shown my picture, probably would not be able to identify me, but in certain circles I've discovered I am a major celebrity. And this can be a bit awkward because you never know when you're about to walk into one of those circles. A while back I was at the airport in Nashville renting a car. And the car rental agent was one of those guys who's maybe a little bit more friendly than their job really demands. It amazes me how many keystrokes it takes to perform the seemingly simple task of giving someone the rental car they've already reserved online. And he chose to fill that time by peppering his customers with personal questions. You in town for business? Yeah. Oh, really? Well, what do you do? Well, I make kids' videos. I usually prefer the conversation stops there, not because I don't want people to know exactly what I do, but rather because once they find out, how they react is so unpredictable that I don't know how to posture myself for what will happen next. Have you heard of VeggieTales? He stopped typing. My rental car was now getting farther away, not closer. VeggieTales? You made VeggieTales? Hey, Rodney! He yells to a guy in the back room, leaves, walks in the back. Now everyone within 30 feet is staring at me. He comes back with his coworker, Rodney, another guy about the same age. This guy made VeggieTales. Rodney stands there, stares at me apathetically, says, I have no idea what that is. as I travel, I'm typically confronted with people from both groups, those wildly fanatical about VeggieTales and those who don't have the foggiest notion what it is. So I always start when I speak by assuming there are representatives of both groups in the room, and start with a very simple question: what is VeggieTales? VeggieTales is something that on paper makes no sense at all. It is a series of children's videos where limbless talking vegetables retell Bible stories. Try raising money with that pitch. It was created in a spare bedroom by a guy who got kicked out of Bible college after only 3 semesters for failing chapel. A guy who had no money, no connections, and no idea what he was getting himself into. And somehow, quite unexpectedly, it became not only the best-selling Christian direct-to-video series in history, but ultimately the best-selling direct-to-video series of any kind in history, with more than 50 million videos sold to date. In 1999 and 2000, VeggieTales videos outsold every other kid's property in the world, including Barney, Scooby-Doo, and Pokemon. In 2004, after 11 years in the market, VeggieTales was still Warner Brothers' #1 selling kids video series. But the VeggieTales phenomenon went beyond the sale of videos. Teenagers and college kids embraced Bob the Tomato and Larry the Cucumber. VeggieTales parties sprouted up on college campuses, first at Christian colleges, as you might expect, but then at places like the University of Michigan and Texas A&M. Yeah. A CNN poll found VeggieTales among the top 10 most watched videos on college campuses nationwide. Larry the Cucumber t-shirts were cited at dance clubs in downtown Chicago. And perhaps most astonishingly, VeggieTales was directly parodied in a 2-minute animated spoof on Saturday Night Live and referenced by 3 different episodes of The Simpsons. VeggieTales was an enormous success. It was my dream come true. It was a great story, too. Small-town kid with nothing but a big idea beats the odds and becomes a huge success. Changes the way people think about fill in the blank. The story of VeggieTales' success is a story that we love to hear. It's the story that People magazine wanted to hear. It's the story that the Wall Street Journal wanted to hear. It's the story that Newsweek wanted to hear. But it isn't the story I'm going to tell you today. I'm going to tell you a different story. It isn't a story about VeggieTales at all. It's a story about me. I grew up deep in the evangelical community. My dad was the Sunday school superintendent of our local church, and my mother directed the choir. We were there every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night prayer meeting and Awana clubs, potlucks, and church picnics. My great-grandfather started a Bible and missionary conference in northwest Iowa in 1931 that continues to this day. And for the first 25 years of my life, I never missed a year. Now, growing up in church and at missionary conferences, you pick up certain evangelical phrases that stick with you. Phrases like, "Only when life will soon be past, only what's done for Christ will last." That phrase really hit me. If the only things that mattered were the things that I did for Christ, and that's what I wanted to do. But there was another phrase that stuck to me. God can't steer a parked car. They might not have been scripture, but they sure smelled like it. So if what I did for Christ was the most important thing, and if God really couldn't steer a parked car, well then I didn't want to be a parked car. I had to get moving. I had to start doing stuff. I had to get busy. I'd noticed at a very early age that God had given me an ability to tell stories. I made my first film when I was 8, and by 14 knew that I was going to make films when I grew up, and that would be the work I would do for Christ. So I decided to go to Bible college and then film school. Well, I never made it to film school, and as I mentioned, after 3 semesters of Bible college, my new friend Mike Naraki and I were both invited not to return. We had failed chapel. So I came back to Chicago and got a job in video production. And within a few years, not only had I learned the world of video production, but I'd also learned the budding new world of computer animation. And therein, I found my tools to do my work for the kingdom, to make my contribution to Christ. So in 1993, with money from friends and family and the help of just 2 other guys, I produced the first episode of VeggieTales, a rather odd little video starring talking vegetables that loved God. We didn't sell very many copies, but the people who bought it really, really liked it. And they told their friends who really, really liked it, and they told their friends who really, really liked it. And before long, we'd sold 1 million videos. And then 2 million, then 3 million, then 5, then 10 million videos. And we started getting letters, as many as 400 a day from as far away as Australia. mostly from parents who wanted to tell us what a huge impact our videos were having on their kids. God was using our efforts. Lives were being changed. So I decided it was time to get busier. We could do even more good. We started producing books, records, computer games, toys, a live touring show, shows at theme parks, and even our own feature film. I figured if I could have this much impact just by making videos, think of the impact I could have if I built the next Disney. Of course, I realized that would make me the next Walt. I liked the sound of that. Turns out so did a lot of other people. I met with artists from Disney, DreamWorks, and Warner Brothers, and some of them thought, hey, he could be the next Walt, and they wanted to sign up for the ride. So I hired all of them and set them to work on all the projects that I'd set in motion. By the year 2000, we'd gone from 3 people to more than 200, the biggest animation studio between the coasts. We'd just been named one of 10 studios to watch by Animation Magazine, and I'd just been named in a PBS special one of 10 people to watch in Worldwide Religion. Whew, pretty good for a Bible college dropout. Right about then, everything started to go wrong. The management team I'd put together to grow the company did a wonderful job hiring a whole mess of people, but they couldn't get along with each other, and they couldn't get along with me. We spent months arguing about silly things like whether or not our core fan could be classified as Christian. And then without warning, our sales stopped growing. I mean, completely stopped growing. And this was very bad because most of the people that we had hired could only be afforded if our sales kept growing. In April of 2000, I realized that everything I had built was in very real danger of falling apart. I realized I had to do what I had promised myself I would never do, lay people off. From 210 to 180 to 140 to 100. Every layoff broke my heart. Every face that had come in beaming with enthusiasm, excited to be a part of something bigger than they were, walked out stained with disappointment, with tears for a dream that for them had ended too soon.